Hello, this is Andrew Balashak for Computer Science 455 at Washington State University. This is going to be a walkthrough of my client-server application that I designed for a homework assignment. Alright, so we're going to start off here with the server code. So, get the imports, this is localhost, so that's the host. I chose the port 4949, and I used the SSL library to wrap the socket in the secure socket layer. So this is just saying that we're using the transport layer security protocol, and this will negotiate between the client and the server to figure out the highest version of the protocol that they can use. I load the server certificates. These are something that I created from just following like a walkthrough. Uh, they seem to work. I couldn't really tell you that much beyond there. I mean, it's basically just saying that the server is who it says it is. Um, but it's just for local stuff, so it's not really super important in this case. But anyway, we create a socket to listen for incoming connections. Then we're listening on that port number. We accept the connection from a client, and then we take that client's or the socket there that we accepted, and we wrap that in the SSL layer, and then we print the help command, which is basically just like it tells you what you can do. You can send messages, you can send files. I put that in here. I thought I was maybe going to add some more commands at some point. I guess I could also put the file transfer one in commands. That would be something to do if I were to go and refactor this. But this actually is in regards to that, where I'm appending the homework 3 directory to the system path so that I can import these, because the server and the client are in their own separate subfolders, and they can't access Python files from the parent folder by default. So yeah, and then we get into the kind of runtime loop where we've got the server starting off with receiving messages, and then on the client side, it's kind of the reverse of that, where we start off with sending messages, and they kind of have to go back and forth. I didn't implement threading to allow them to send an arbitrary number of messages at a time. That was something I considered doing, but I decided that it was kind of out of my reach at the moment. I kind of chose to do the SSL stuff instead, honestly. So anyway, we get the message from the socket, which is very nice because the SSL layer handles all the encryption and stuff, and you don't have to like call a cryptography the class to decrypt something. That was how I did it previously, which was also less secure because you're kind of hacking in your own encryption. It's much better to use like the SSL library, so I'm glad that I got that figured out. But anyway, if it's like not valid, then we just break out of this because client closed the connection. If it is, then we can just decode it from the bytes into a valid string, and then we're checking if they want to initiate a file transfer. If they do, then we go into the receive file method, which I will cover later. Otherwise, we can just display it as text. And then we go into the send messages loop, and we get a message. And then we need to make sure that they send something so that we can maintain kind of the back and forth between them. So if they do something like call the help command, then they're not going to send a message, so we don't change the sent variable to be true. So we just kind of loop until they actually send a message. Because they could also input an invalid file and that wouldn't send anything, and then you would have to restart the program because they wouldn't have that back and forth. You'd be in the wrong state. Anyway, so if they want to initiate a file transfer, then you get the you just check and see if the command starts with file, you get the base name from that, and then get the current working directory. And then for this one, we navigate into the server one because we're only sending files that are available to the server. And we just kind of join that to be the file path because that's got the path to here and then the file name that they want. We got to make sure that that is a real file so that it's valid. We tell the client that we're sending a file, so we basically just send that message that says like, file : because then the client will read that and then it'll understand that we want to initiate a file transfer. And then we go into the method and actually send the file, print a confirmation message, and then kind of the base case for this is just you want to send a text message, which is just sending it there. So anyway, client is pretty much the same thing with connecting to that same port, creating the socket. I wrapped this here because if you try and do socket.connect and it doesn't connect to anything, then it'll just throw an exception. So I wanted to basically just handle that nicely. Wrapping in the secure socket layer again, and then this is just basically kind of the reverse where we start off sending messages and then we go to receiving messages later. And the file transfer one, this is kind of the most interesting part. Client and server are very similar for the most part. Anyway, so if we want to send a file, what we do is we are given the socket that we want to send the file to, or send the file over rather, and we're given the file path to the file that we want to send. So we get the size, get the base name, and we kind of send this metadata first. Actually, before this, they're told that they want to initiate a file transfer. So then the other side would be in this part when we're in this part here. So we send that metadata and then we open the file in binary mode, read in the data, compute a checksum for that data using SHA-256 so that we can make sure that the file isn't damaged or tampered with in transit. We send the checksum and then we send the data. It's not encrypted above the socket layer in this version. It used to be encrypted above the socket layer, but now I'm using the SSL library. So in the receiving file side, this is kind of the most complex method in this whole thing. First, we receive that metadata, which is the size and the name of the checksum. We want to put it in that same place. So if we're the server and we're receiving a file, we want to put it in the server subfolder. We don't want to just put it in the homework 3 directory, which is where it would go from the Python instance working directory. Anyway, so we open in binary mode to write. We write it all out. We keep receiving chunks from the buffer size until we've got all the data. We close it, and then we open it back up and compute the checksum from that file using the same SHA-256. Close it again, and then we compare the checksum that we computed from the file we received with the checksum we were given at the beginning. If they match, then we receive the file. If they don't match, then the file was corrupted somehow or tampered with, and we can just delete it because there's not really any use having a broken file or a potentially malicious file. All right, so now I'll show you the code running. So I'll start with the server. We're listening on localhost 4949. Start the client. And we connected to localhost 4949. Here's the SSL version information. And then we can type a message and press enter. So I'm going to type hello server. And you'll notice that we kind of just halt here because we're waiting to receive a message. That's kind of what I talked about where we have the back and forth. Anyway, server has the same kind of thing where we accepted a connection from the client address there. And then there's the client's message that says hello server. And we can just respond and say cool. All right, and then on the client side we have that. And then we can initiate a file transfer. The file that I'm going to be transferring, I initially transferred this test file because it was just super short, but I wanted to try something longer just to make sure that things worked. So I downloaded this PDF of Mark Twain's Huckleberry Finn from online. I think it's like 800 kilobytes, so it's not huge, but it's bigger than just a small little text file, and it has formatting where if any little thing gets corrupted, it'll just be a broken PDF. So we do want it to be transferred all in one piece. So we just say file and then the file name. So we want to transfer huckfin.pdf and enter. And then it'll tell us that it sent that checksum, and it'll tell us that it sent the file to that address. And on the server side, we're receiving the file from that address. That's the file size in bytes, the name of the file, the checksum that we received. We open the file. This line's kind of just for debugging. I could probably just comment that out. And then it says that we received it successfully. Again, if we didn't receive it successfully, it would say that the checksum didn't match. It would print the two checksums, and then it would remove that corrupt file. And then here on the server folder, we have the adventures of Huckleberry Finn. So there we go. Thank you so much for your time, and you have a good day.